when there was no concept of AI. You saw that.
We just started with a problem that, in our opinion, could have only been solved with AI. For technology, there is one mecca in the world.
Yeah.
It is Silicon Valley. It's this town called Los Altos Hills. We found a beautiful house there. So we bought that house only to realize that a street away from us is this very big house over a hill of a certain person called Sundar Pichai.
Okay.
Our founding story was about conversational AI. What ChatGPT did was just make AI accessible to everyone. There has never been a bigger technology shift than AI.
It can do a lot of fun things, but the boring things that we don't want to do, when is it going to start doing all of that?
Look, physical AI is just around the corner. The number of startups in the US that are working on physical AI, robotics, just insane. You can't win the globe without winning US. The single most important commodity going forward for business is going to be data, proprietary data. And as businesses started to realize that, then it became apparent to them that data should be kept in lock and key. This is going to be much bigger if we create a larger ecosystem.
Hello everyone, I'm Saloni Malhotra and I'm the founder of Desi Crew and the author of Roots and Wings, the authorized biography of Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala and how deep tech was built in India. Today I have a very special guest with me, an old friend who I've known for many, many years and has worked together with Professor Jhunjhunwala and me, Umesh Sachdev, the CEO of Uniphore. Uniphore, as we know, is a global company, having raised their Series F of 260 million just last year. They have thousands of customers globally, and I'm really thrilled that Umesh is sitting with us today to share about his journey and where they are today. Welcome to the show, Umesh.
Thank you for having me, Saloni.
Lovely. Before we begin, I want to go back. I remember Uniphore pre-seed, right? I remember sitting in the computer science department in Dr. Himamurthy's office, actually, when there was no concept of AI and no concept of transcribing, but you saw that and you picked on it. So tell us a little bit about the genesis of Uniphore and where it started.
You're really taking me back in time, Saloni. If I think back at how Uniphore got started, I think there are lots of lessons for entrepreneurs who are starting their journey right now. We've kind of been through several stages. We started in India in an incubation lab in IIT, struggled to raise our Series A, but at some point found product market fit, started to grow, pivoted the company to US, and then we saw like big growth. In the early years, if you really ask me, I don't think there was this foresight of what's going to happen.
Right.
Like, I'll be lying if I tell you I knew that in 2022 Sam Altman will have this LLM moment and it'll all like open up. We just started with a problem that, in our opinion, could have only been solved with AI.
Right.
And that's why we got into AI, not because we had like
Of course.
tremendous like thesis around AI. And the problem was, how do we get people in countries like India, which are not in the top 150 million, but the second tier or the third tier of Indians who may not speak English, may live in smaller towns or villages, how do we help them connect to the internet? And the only way we knew possible was to let them speak in their vernacular language and interact bidirectionally with the internet. And truly speaking, we started with a model of, can we literally set up a call center? People with multilingual skills, picking up calls, just doing Google searches and answering back. And when that business model wasn't working out, we said then we have to replace the BPO worker with a machine.
Of course.
And that's AI.
Right.
And that's how Uniphore got into working on AI a long time ago.
Incredible. And Ravi and you have been co-founders through the journey. What gets co-founders to stick together?
Well, that's also an interesting one to think about. Ravi and I have not only been co-founders, but we've been now best friends for 22, 23 years. We met in undergrad.
Right.
We came from very different family backgrounds, different cities. Ravi grew up in Guwahati in Assam. I grew up in New Delhi. We met in undergrad doing computer science together. and found instant chemistry, like in each other's ideas and values, and started to do some project work on the sidelines of undergrad. And at some point, we both like said neither of us were interested to take jobs after undergrad, and we were very smitten by the entrepreneurship news that was beginning to come out in the
And
country.
this is 2007.
2007, 2008.
It wasn't that big. I mean, we
Wasn't
all
that
started
big.
around the same time, and it was hard to convince your parents that you didn't want a job and you wanted to do your own
That's
company.
true. That's
Right?
true. It wasn't big in India for sure. It was
Right.
certainly big in Silicon Valley
Of
already.
course. Of course.
Time magazine had, in 2008, had Mark Zuckerberg on the cover,
Of course.
and he was a billionaire at 21 or 22, if I remember correctly.
Right.
So there was global inspiration. There was less in India. And you're right, like it wasn't a straightforward conversation with one's parents to say, we won't take up jobs, we won't do higher studies, but we're going to try our hand at entrepreneurship. Lucky for both Ravi and I, we both went to our fathers, and like in 10 seconds, our father said, of course you should do it. So we got instant encouragement at the
Very nice.
household. But coming back to your point of what does it take for co-founders to last that long, I think it's a very special relationship that Ravi and I have, right? We have tremendous trust in each other. We have trust in each other's capabilities. We know what each one is good at and not good at, and we can back both of ourselves. And at some point, early days, everyone does everything. But at
Right.
some point, as the company started to scale and grow, and there was like media attention and people started to recognize who Uniphore is, it just automatically established itself that one of us did not want to be the face of the company, the leader of the company, and one of us needed to be. So I'm the CEO, I'm the face of the company, I'm out there beating the drum for Uniphore,
Right.
and Ravi's very happy making sure the train runs on tracks.
Right.
And just establishing that complementary relationship, establishing trust. And I think trust is a two-way street. We both have been loyal to
Absolutely.
each other, and it works because, you know, we both know that we have our best interests in mind all the time. And I think that's what's carried the relationship for so long.
No, God bless. I think it's a lot of hard work for co-founders to stay together and stay friends for this long, and may that always grow.
To that point, I'll say at
Yeah.
one point, John Chambers, who was the former CEO of Cisco,
Right.
he invested in Uniphore, he joined our board, and he was like already on the board of Uniphore when Ravi first moved to Singapore
Right.
to expand us to the Far East. And in a couple of years from then, I moved to Silicon Valley
Right.
to set up our base in the US. And I remember John Chambers telling Ravi and I that, you know, when you both started, you sat in the same office.
Right.
Now that like communication is going to be challenging, but make sure you pick up the phone multiple times a day and talk to each other. So it was a good reminder that let physical distance
Yeah.
not create communication gaps. And I think it takes people who've been there and done that and seen successes and failures
Right.
to like give you the recipe here.
And that is such prudent advice. I think proximity may not be there, but that relationship has to grow.
That's right.
But I want to go back to, you have had fabulous mentors, John Chambers being one of them, like you mentioned. And I remember there was a ceremony where you handed over a physical baton from your mentor, Professor Junjunwala, to John Chambers. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you guys, what was that all about?
I think this goes back to a lot of the core values that have shaped who I am as an entrepreneur because of Professor Junjunwala. I don't think I could spell entrepreneurship when I first met him.
Right.
I met you at the same time because you were incubating another company
Right.
under his wings. And all of that inspired me. And there was an appeal to it, and I jumped in. But, you know, how does an entrepreneur take your responsibility seriously? When you raise capital, like you owe it back to those people at some point. When a customer signs a contract, you basically have signed a deed that you're going to give them the best product or service and so on and
Right.
so forth. So core values came from Professor Jhunjhunwala. One of those was a surprising lesson for me. Professor created for us a board of directors super early. Like we hadn't even released the first prototype. We were far away from revenue. But because of the fact that we had raised a seed round of money, Professor said we need some governance. Let's put a board in place. Let's also get an independent director. He himself joined the board. So we got into the rhythm of quarterly board meetings, literally like 6 months into founding. And then we raised Series A, we raised Series B. And at some point, I saw Professor started to skip attending board meetings. Either he was traveling or he was busy. He would attend one, skip two. And I remember talking to him one-on-one personally, and I said, "Sir, I think like the schedule may not be working out. I'm willing to work with whatever is right for you, but I'm beginning to feel your absence in these board meetings, and I'd like you to be more present, because I had grown to be used to his presence."
Right.
Um, and he smiled and said, "You've now got investors. My job is nearly done, and you're on your own." Okay. That was a surprising lesson for me. I hadn't thought of it up until then as
Right.
like at some point his influence is gonna reduce. And it was his foresight. So we called him the original guru for us, our mentor, our teacher, our coach. When John Chambers invested, it wasn't just a financial investment. He was very interested to again mentor, coach, become a true business partner. And as a part of that relationship, he said, "I'm also willing to invest some money."
Right.
Right. So the investment was also almost a byproduct of the relationship we were establishing. And he was willing to take us under his wings, encourage me to move to the valley. He said, "Look, I'll be your safety net, but you're going to win the global war either by winning the US or it won't matter. So you
Right.
have to be in the US." And so we gave him the title of Chief Guru very creatively. And he had visited India right
Right.
after investing. We had done an event calling our customers, calling the media, announcing like John Chambers had invested. We invited Prof in that meeting. And I think we all just came up with this idea on the fly that let's pass
Right.
the baton from our OG guru, Professor
Right.
Jhunjhunwala, to our now new phase mentor,
Right.
Chief Guru John Chambers. That didn't mean to me, though, that I was going to stop seeking our Prof's advice,
Of course.
but it meant that we are entering a new phase of our life,
Right.
new phase of Uniphore's growth, and new mentor was going to like be very close to us.
And with that, you moved lock, stock, barrel with family to the US. You grew up in Delhi. You moved to Chennai to start your company. And at some point, when the company came to a certain stage, you decided to move to the US. It is not easy. And a lot of people find it very hard with running business or running family, to pack up and do this. So, what motivated you? What gave you the, impetus and energy? And for a lot of young people, young entrepreneurs in India today, where risk capital is not available for their business, but they have reached a certain size and scale, what would you say to them and how would you move them?
Yeah, so I think let's talk about the basics here. India is one of the world's largest, fastest growing large economy. Our GDP is growing at 6 to 7% annually. No other large economy, which is upwards of $1 trillion in GDP, is growing this fast. So, therefore, if there is one market to keep in your like investment pool and growth pool globally, it's India.
Right.
However, there are two parts of the Indian economy that are growing. There is the consumer side, 1.4, 1.5 billion people, and a fast growing population.
Right.
And then there's the enterprise side. The population is so large that it creates a great opportunity for consumer businesses,
Right.
new problems to be solved. No country in the world has seen scale problems that India is seeing. So, like, there's no playbook, and we can do a lot of new innovation in India. When it comes to B2B, business to business, or enterprise, Indian businesses aren't some of the largest in the world. And that's down to the fact that our per capita income, what the consumers can afford to pay a telecom company or a bank, isn't comparable to a US or European countries. And so the market size for enterprise focused businesses, India doesn't give a great opportunity. All right. And so for B2B entrepreneurs, therefore, at some point, going outside of India makes sense. Now, why move to the US? If you're dealing with anything to do with software or technology that has a global footprint and the world is your TAM, then 50% of global software TAM, let me repeat, 50% of global software TAM is United States of America.
Wow.
And the remaining 50% has everybody else, including Europe and Asia and Australia and Japan. Okay? So US is such a dominant part of the global spending in software and infrastructure that you can't win the globe without winning US.
Right.
And if that's going to be such an important market, you can't outsource running US to a sales leader or a country leader.
Right.
The leader of the business, the CEO, should be present close to customers in the most important market. That's the lesson I learned. To be honest, some of our early VCs, Series A, Series B investors who were Indian funds, Jarate Ventures and others, had started to say this to me for a few years. But like you said, it's not a small move. I had a 3-year-old daughter who was born in India. My wife and I were settled in Chennai. We had like built a small life for ourselves and it was growing and we were very comfortable and happy.
Right.
And it's not easy to move to a new country, find a new base. And by the way, it's not like Uniphore had a lot of capital in the bank.
Agreed. Yeah.
And one knew that moving to the US, the expenditure is going to jump much faster before revenue comes
Right.
in.
Right.
And it took someone like a John Chambers to like not only invest, but recognize my anxiety towards the move. And I remember I was visiting him in San Jose. He was still chairman of board at Cisco. Visited him in the Cisco offices. We sat down in his office. And he said, I'll be your safety net. Don't worry, just move. Okay? That was a big moment for me.
Of course.
And then he had the foresight to ask me the next question.
Right.
If you were to move to the US, which part of US would you move to? And I said, look, my handful of American customers are in the Northeast, the New York, New Jersey, Chicago belt. So maybe I'll just move closer to my customers. He smiled and he said, do you think you want to raise your family in Manhattan? And I said, no, probably the suburbs.
Yeah.
And he said something funny. He said, so you'll be traveling back and forth to Manhattan every day, right? I said, yes. He said, why don't you just travel from California?
Yeah.
That was his way of saying, move to Silicon Valley. That's where the action is. That's where innovation happens, even if the customers are not necessarily in Silicon Valley. And I think I should have moved earlier
And I
because
know
the
you
game
keep,
really changed.
yeah, and you keep saying that. You keep saying that to all of us who haven't made the move.
That's right.
That we're all a year too late, or every year is just passing by.
For technology, there is one mecca in the world.
Yeah.
It is Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
There's all this talk of the second or the third Silicon Valley in Berlin or Bengaluru,
Right.
and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
We do business everywhere. We have teams everywhere.
Right.
I can tell you there is only one Silicon Valley in the world. And for any ambitious technology entrepreneur,
Right.
if you're chasing your passion, you want to build a large business in technology, once in your life, you need to do it in the valley to
Right.
give yourself that best shot at success.
No, very well said. And when you moved there, obviously life was hard. But the last time I visited you and I came home for dinner, you very proudly showed me a little bit of your neighborhood. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and give a sneak peek to our listeners of where you live now?
Yeah. So the Uniphore headquarters is Palo Alto
Yeah.
in Silicon Valley, which is 40 minutes south of San Francisco. It's the same town where Stanford University is. And when we moved to the US, we obviously couldn't buy a house at that point. We didn't have the means, so we started to rent a home. And we rented a home in a city called Fremont. It was a beautiful home, but my commute back and forth from Fremont to Palo Alto was between 50 minutes to 1.5 hours each way. And again, I didn't move to the US to spend all my time driving back and forth on the
Right.
road.
Right.
And then came COVID, the commutes like became super short. There was no traffic on the road, so it was
Right.
fine. As COVID was easing out, Silicon Valley was back with a vengeance, traffic and everything. So I spoke to my wife, and by that time, it had been 5 or 6 years in the US. We had developed some means to start to own a house.
Right.
And I convinced my wife that let's buy a house close to the office. So 8 minutes away from the Uniphore headquarters is this town called Los Altos Hills. We found a beautiful house there. Turns out the seller of the house, from whom we bought this house, was an Indian entrepreneur who in the late 90s took his networking company public.
Oh, lovely.
All right. So for me, it was good omen as well.
Of course.
The house was beautiful, but it was coming with great omen
Right.
and like auspicious value. So we bought that house only to realize that a street away from us is this very big house over a hill of a certain person called Sundar Pichai.
Okay.
A few weeks down the road was a house that Jensen Huang used to live in. He's since moved to a different city.
Right.
Several venture capitalists, several other entrepreneurs. Ramesh Wadhwani has
Right.
a big mansion in Los Altos Hills. So it's a very nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's in the woods, so you have places to walk or hike. But sometimes walking on a Sunday, you can run into some of these, tech legends
Right.
and just slow down and chat with them. This serendipity
Yeah.
is what shapes Silicon Valley.
Right. It's come out beautifully for you, moving from Delhi to the best address in the world for tech that there is. So I'm just curious that you've seen a lot of the hype cycles. You've seen, from 2008 to now, you've seen all of the hype cycles and the bubbles. What do you think about AI? What's happening? Where is it, where is it headed?
So keep in mind, Uniphore was born doing AI. In 2008, our founding story was about conversational AI.
Right.
There were obviously no LLMs then.
Correct.
Transformer models hadn't come out. But natural language models, speech to text, text to speech. We have since then seen successive generations of machine learning and AI see major improvements. Deep neural networks and transformer models and whatnot. What the ChatGPT moment did, and truly speaking, there was a technology evolution, but there was a much bigger marketing moment.
Right.
None of us could imagine, and I'm sure even Sam Altman would agree, that what ChatGPT did was just make AI accessible to everyone. It wasn't this thing that research folks in Silicon Valley do, and it's sci-fi and it's going to happen in the future. It was here and it was now. And I think as we look back, like over time, we look back at that moment and create history, books about what happened. It was the ease with which ChatGPT was made available. You no longer had to write complex code. You could just, in natural language English, initially interact with this chatbot, and it could answer your questions and it could like do things for you. And it made AI accessible.
Right.
Like every other tech trend, when something becomes accessible to consumers, it becomes accessible to businesses.
Right.
Remember, in the smartphone era, the beauty of the iPhone was that it brought smartphones,
Right.
which were not just Blackberries that business professionals were using. This was something that every consumer in every part of the world could just start using with ease of interface.
Right.
And that's what made smartphones really explode. AI was similar. It started with the consumer, and now it's slowly getting into the enterprise. You asked me of my opinion. There has never been a bigger technology shift than AI. It took ChatGPT 5 days
Right.
to get to 1 million users,
Right.
couple of months to get to 100 million users, and they're just shy of 1 billion users right now.
Right.
Then we have Claude, and then we have Gemini. No other technology in the history of humankind has scaled this fast. That's the first thing. Second, the profound impact it's beginning to have in almost everything we know to be true today. How we do research for drugs and healthcare, how we conduct processes within an enterprise, how consumers search and look for information, how students learn, and so how governments run. It's having a major and profound impact on everything. And I think most people don't fully understand the magnitude of this.
Right.
I think the magnitude of this is we today know organizations and companies to have certain structures. There's human resources, there's marketing, there's sales, there's finance. Those structures are going to be called different things. And that's how big the impact of AI is. I actually think we are entering, because of AI, an age of abundance. It's not so much that AI is like going to replace jobs and whatnot.
Right.
But if AI is going to work, our measure of success should be countries should see an acceleration in GDP. India should get to a 10% number if AI is working. US should cross 5% GDP growth if AI is working, which means all of us should likely have more abundance
Right.
of money, of resource, and time on our hands.
Right.
And that's the big gift that AI is like out to give it to all of us.
I saw a really sweet clip from the 1930s where in a marketplace, a salesman is introducing a washing machine. First time they're displaying a washing machine. And the question is, but if this is going to do what we do, then what are we going to do? Right? And I guess a lot of people have that question that AI is doing a lot of the fun things that we would like to do. It makes art and it writes and it can do a lot of fun things, but the boring things that we don't want to do, when is it going to start doing all of that? When is it going to start doing, the more physical stuff as well? And do you have any insight around that?
Yeah, for sure. Look, let's talk about boring stuff first.
Yeah.
In enterprises, there's a lot of boring stuff that happens.
Yeah.
There's administrative stuff. There are people who are like, whose job description is to fill forms and move files and be part of a big workflow. All of that boring stuff is already being conducted by AI.
Right.
And you're right that leads to anxiety that if AI is doing my job, what will I do next? But at an aggregate, right now, the experience is already we are seeing more jobs. Even at this early stage of the AI transformation, we are beginning to see more jobs become available. And I think that's going to be the trend. It's just going to be different. People might have to reskill themselves, but there's at an aggregate going to be abundance of jobs, just like abundance of everything else.
Right.
On the personal side, look, physical AI is just around the corner. The most popular example is Optimus robots that Elon Musk has been talking about. But I can tell you the number of startups in the US, in the Valley, that are working on physical AI robotics is just insane. Huge amounts of capital is going in, huge amounts of innovation. And I know somebody who works at Tesla, and their technology office just happens to be across the street from Uniphore. And they are in a very important position as far as Optimus robots is concerned. And the insight I learned is they are down to now figuring out a business model. So in the US, if you hire a house help, very few people can afford a full-time, like every day,
Right.
somebody who comes to your house every day to clean the house and help you with your chores. Most people can afford like once a week or twice a week. You might spend $1,000 to $3,000 a month on accessing this house help. The Optimus robot, the business model being evolved is how does it fit this $3,000 a month? So you don't have to shell like $40,000 of one-time purchase. Right. How do you lease it for $3,000 a month?
Interesting.
In which you get a full-time living with you house help that not just cleans your house but does 10 more things.
Wow.
Right? And so I think like everything else, it's going to start with Silicon Valley because there's a higher propensity to experiment. And even if something's not perfect, the mindset in the valley is we'll take it. And that's going to lead to the rest of the world, including India, gaining access to physical AI.
Very interesting. You've said in your recent interviews that Uniphore is a sovereign. You've spoken about sovereign AI, right, and how businesses need to take control. Tell us a little bit about that and how Uniphore is addressing that space.
Yeah, the word sovereign AI was first coined more in relation to geopolitics and countries,
Absolutely.
thinking about AI supply chain of the future. That if AI is going to be such an important part of our lives, and we've seen recent developments in like trade negotiations in the world, countries in Europe and Asia first started to say, how do we not be reliant on United States of America
Right.
to be renting our intelligence? So how do we create data centers and GPUs and LLMs within our country? It turns out that very similar issues apply to enterprises, which means if you're a large telecom player or insurance player or bank, everyone, including your neighbor, is going to have access to the same or similar LLMs.
Right.
So what will differentiate you from a peer company is how did you use your own proprietary data that your company has amassed over years, and how well were you able to fine tune or domesticate the LLM for your business and create differentiated experiences and services and efficiency versus a competitor. Which means that the single most important commodity going forward for business is going to be data, proprietary data. And as businesses started to realize that, then it became apparent to them that that data should be kept in lock and key. It shouldn't be leased out to a cloud provider,
Right.
even if contractually it is said that nobody will touch my data. I don't know that I want to like take that risk.
Right.
I want my data with me, as close to me as possible, ideally in my country, hopefully in my own office, in my own firewall, in my own data center. Okay. If that's the case, then my intelligence that's running on top of that data, namely GPUs and models and agents, will perform better if they're co-located with my data. So if my data is close to me, so should be AI, so should be models, so should be agents. What Uniphore does in that stack is we own 5 layers of the infrastructure software stack. We are right above the GPU. We own inferencing, we own data processing, we own model fine tuning, we own agents, and the entire governance stack around it. And we saw this trend super early by virtue of like being in business with these customers for a long period of time. And so, contrary to the trend in the early 2020s, where everything was cloud, SaaS was going to cloud,
Right.
as we were redeveloping our platform for the LLM economy, we developed it to not only run on the cloud, but also run on premises, even if it were disconnected from the internet,
Interesting.
because we knew this is going to be important. The way it's playing out today is there is not a single conversation with a CIO that I can have without sovereignty, optionality, control being mentioned in the meeting. Outside of the US,
Right.
it is geopolitics linked. When customers in Germany are buying our platform, the CIO does openly now ask us the question, what if Uniphore one day is included in a list of companies which are embargoed as part of a trade negotiation between US and Germany?
Right.
So if we have to work with Uniphore, we need Uniphore to run in a data center in Germany. And they're not okay with AWS Germany. They're really saying a German-owned data center that they can like freely control
This is BCP at another level.
at another level.
Yeah.
In the US, geopolitics is not playing out on like CIO minds, but no CIO anymore wants to be locked in to one LLM, one GPU, one architecture,
Right.
which was the trend in the early days of
Right.
LLMs. You were either in the OpenAI camp or the Google camp or the Anthropic
Right.
camp. Now people want optionality. And more importantly, what's gaining ground now is open weight small language models. Folks are realizing that by spending 97% less expenditure on token cost,
Right.
there is a possibility to get better performance, not inferior performance,
Right.
because we can take smaller models and make them experts
Right.
in like deep domains of a business, billing, collection, sales, marketing. You could extract better performance at a significantly lower cost. And because these are open weights, you can run them in a sovereign way on premises. And so the new architecture evolving is I want my intelligence, I don't want to rent it from anybody. I want it with me,
Right.
next to my data,
Right.
and the intellectual property of that should belong to me as an enterprise.
Right. Very interesting. And as you've built this, obviously the understanding is changing every other year, right? But Uniphore has also had a strategy to inorganically grow the revenue, and you've acquired a lot of companies, right? So young companies that are sitting out there looking at getting acquired, how should they look at, the global uh, uh, field at this point of time and at companies like you?
Yeah. So, first, a clarification, the acquisitions we've done were filling a technology gap in our jigsaw puzzle.
Right.
Because if you think about the platform that Uniphore has built, which is a data and AI orchestration platform, it's very broad in its capability, but it's also very deep in science. And we didn't have a very long time to build it. As the LLMs were coming out, our
Right.
customers were transitioning. We had a very clear signal from the market, but we also had a window to go after. So we've done 4 acquisitions since 2023. Each of those 4 were intentionally filling a technology gap in that broad and deep platform that we wanted to build because we wanted shortest time to market. Our go-to-market engine has been humming. We grew 94% last year. We are accelerating that to about 150% year-on-year growth this year. And Uniphore's like the revenue is getting significant now. Our total customer value will cross 1.5 billion US
Incredible.
this year. And to grow at 150% at that scale, you know, not many times in history has that happened. And our go to market is humming because we have created a machine which is very focused on Global 2000, the upper end of enterprise. Not because we don't see a big TAM in lower enterprise or mid
Right.
market. We just picked an ideal customer profile and said we're going to build our product for them and we're going to build our go to market for them. And we'll just stay in that swim lane for as long as we can. Sometimes when we acquire startups that have revenue, they don't have this focus on GTM. They've probably historically sold to smaller businesses
Right.
or other startups in mid market, and it actually pollutes our go to market. So we don't do acquisition necessarily to keep revenue growth in mind because
Sure.
our revenue is growing organically
Sure.
more than we can handle. We do acquisitions more for technology and talent. So we like companies if they are pre-revenue. If they do have revenue and we still like their technology, a lot of times, like in year 1 or 2, we're actually forcing churn of some of those customers which are not
Yeah.
in our ICP, and it causes some distraction. So younger companies, if you're building a point solution, there will be a point where a larger platform will be a better place to be part of. Because every time in technology this happens, that initially lots of point solutions appear,
Right.
and then the CIO always wants consolidation. No CIO wants to deal with 100 vendors.
Right.
They want 2 or 3 vendors, which are platforms, to bring all the capabilities to them. It happened in networking, which is why Cisco and Juniper and a few others emerged as leaders. It happened in ERP. Initially, there were like thousands of point solutions, but then SAP, Oracle,
Right.
and only a handful others survived. CRM, there were thousands of CRMs, and then consolidation occurred, and bigger platforms like Salesforce and ServiceNow emerged. AI is following exactly the same template. You have thousands of smart entrepreneurs creating startups,
Right.
solving parts of the problem of this jigsaw puzzle. Uniphore is one of probably 4 or 5 companies in the world which is going after the complete AI and data orchestration
Right.
platform. And so those point solutions at some point either they become so large that they themselves become a broader platform, or they're likely to be consolidated into a broader platform.
So what I hear you say is that have a very sharp and focused ICP, right? Even if it is solving one thing very well, which a large player may or may not be solved, it's okay for a smaller company to just stay focused
That's
and
right.
build, and that is what will get them, hopefully, an exit, to
Of
a
some
larger
kind,
entity
yeah.
of some
Yeah.
kind. Which also brings me to a question that I wanted to ask you. Your Series F, all of the players who would otherwise probably not come together came together and invested in Uniphore. Was it Databricks,
And Snowflake
NVIDIA, Snowflake,
and AMD.
and AMD? All four. Tell us a little bit about how you made that happen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when we were raising Series F, one of the things we realized is that Uniphore was not a company that was born in the last 2 years. We'd been around doing AI.
Right.
We thought it's a big advantage to us. We
Mm-hmm.
know how our customers consume AI, which are large enterprises. And therefore, the platform that we were building had sovereignty as a principle, had composability as a principle, had this focus on token cost from the beginning. We were less after the frontier LLMs, we were always after open weight small language models. And that was all because we were already in business with thousands of enterprises. But what we realized very quickly when we went out to raise our Series F is that the financial investor community, institutional VCs, growth VCs, sovereign funds, were completely confused
Hmm.
on what's happening in the market. Will the hyperscaler take everything? Will LLM companies own everything?
Right.
What's the role of SaaS platforms like Salesforce? And within that, there's this fast growing independent company called Uniphore
Mm-hmm.
in the hundreds of millions of ARR, but will they even be relevant down the road or not? Right? And so, as that signal became clear to us, it was less to do with how we were doing versus how people were perceiving the
Mm-hmm.
landscape. We knew that we needed validation quickly from voices which are bigger than us,
Right.
voices who can say, we know what's going to happen in the landscape, and companies like Uniphore will be supremely important.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we quickly pivoted the fundraising strategy to reach out to strategics. Fortunately, we had a 5 year old relationship with NVIDIA. We had done a lot of cool things together,
Mm-hmm.
product wise, engineering wise, go to market wise. We reached out to their corp dev team, and it took them like 30 minutes and said, of course, we'd love to participate. Let's see what we can do. We had sponsorship from many people in NVIDIA, and NVIDIA became the first strategic investor. And the minute the news spread that NVIDIA is investing in Uniphore Series F, we saw financial institutions start to feel more comfortable engaging with us.
Right.
Um, Folks on my board, John Chambers included, obviously have deep relationships with the Valley. And John is very close to Lisa Su, who's the CEO of AMD. And in one conversation, John very proudly mentioned to Lisa about one of the companies that he's on the board of, and it's doing well in AI, um, and maybe NVIDIA might be investing or not. And AMD said, well, we'd like to take a look.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we got introduced.
Right.
Again, on the data side, when a Uniphore platform is getting installed in an enterprise, we create an acceleration for the consumption of platforms like Snowflake or Databricks.
Mm-hmm.
Because when our AI platform starts humming, the data platform needs to work harder,
Of
which means
course.
more consumption and more spend by the enterprise. So Snowflake found a reason to strategically then partner with us, and that like eventually Databricks was like, we are equally like close to Uniphore,
Mm.
and we don't want to miss out. But I think the broader lesson that the rest of the world should draw from this is the leaders of technology NVIDIA, AMD, Snowflake, Databricks, as cutthroat competitors as they are, they all understand that this is not a winner takes all position.
Right.
This is going to be much bigger if we create a larger ecosystem.
Right.
And that's why it wasn't like a point of worry for any of them that my competitors on the same cap table. To the contrary, they were like, we didn't want to miss out.
Right.
If we're going to believe that Uniphore and platforms like Uniphore, which are focused on open weight small language models, sovereignty as a concept, if this architecture is likely to grow very fast in the enterprise, we want to be in the ecosystem.
Right.
And that's how that Series F
So
was constructed.
collaboration is equally important
100%.
as competition is
100%.
what I take back from.
Yeah.
Very interesting. You said something that triggered a thought in my head, and which is the reason for this podcast as well. There is a lot of material out there about hustling, about hustle culture. A lot of young entrepreneurs think that people get overnight success, or people who've not been in the trenches feel like that. But people like you who've been in the trenches for 20 years and have worked their way around every edge and corner that there was, know that it's an endurance sport. It takes a while, right? What would you say to younger people who are starting up today about endurance, about sustainability, about just not just hustle, but also about taking care of themselves as they go through this journey?
Yeah. In times like these, unfortunately, the water gets muddied more than it's supposed to. There are examples of companies now which were founded in the last 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And in 2 or 3 years, they've jumped to very high, like tens of billions of market cap. Anthropic itself is a relatively recent phenomenon and is likely to be valued by some measure at 3 trillion if they were to go public shortly.
Right.
Here. So as a younger entrepreneur today, I might be looking at all of these examples and feel like, why can't I be an overnight success or a quick
Right.
success? And I think what people ignore is the founders of these companies iteratively reached here.
Right.
In very rare cases, it is their like first company that in 2 years just skyrocketed. There was iterative learning process by other probably failed startups, failed experiences, larger companies.
Right.
And at some point, this works. In the case of Uniphore and my own journey, it's been one evolution over a long period of time, which has shaped our product, our technology, how we engage with customers, our go-to-market, and so on and so forth. Now, one of my favorite subjects growing up when I was in school was math. My mom is a math teacher. And there's one lesson that I learned in grade 6 or 7, which is about compounding, which has never left me. Like if you just keep adding one number over a long period of time, it becomes a very large number.
Right.
And that concept, if people just understand, they will be calmer about their journey and they'll go about achieving success in a much better way.
Right.
And one day just wake up to be like, man, I've come too far. That compounding applies to business, it applies to health,
Right.
it applies to yourself. A lot of entrepreneurs think they're in a very like busy hustling phase, and for the next few years, health won't matter. Maybe I don't need to work out. Maybe I like give it all for the next 3 years and it'll be all fine. Those 3 years will become 6 and 9. And because your business will be succeeding for a positive reason, you will be hustling for a very long period of time. And so realizing that health and family and business and your passion like need to go together, because this is going to compound over a very long period of time. So just knowing that those big outcomes can happen, but they take a while to come. So how do you keep compounding bit by bit? Don't think about shortcuts. There are no shortcuts in life or business. And just realize that as the founder, you are the biggest leverage this company could ever have. Founders are important. Founders are special for a reason.
Right.
You and I have recognized that in our journeys.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think to take care of the founder, even if you believe not for yourself, but for the company's sake,
Right.
The longer the founder can stay involved, the more legs this company will have to grow really fast.
Right. No, very well said. Thank you so much. I think I've had a really good time talking to you. I always enjoy talking to you, and there's always so much to learn. So thank you for your time, and good luck.
Well, thank you for having me. And you know this. One part of why Uniphore even started was you.
Thank you.
The first entrepreneur being incubated in IIT Madras's
Right.
incubator was you that I met.
Right.
And that had a huge role to play. And across these years, your journey, you've taken different diversions in your journey, come back to entrepreneurship, and so on and so forth. It's been a huge source for inspiration. So, Saloni, thank you.
Thank you.
And it's great to chat with you on this podcast as well.
Thank you.